Now that we understand a little bit about how to create curves, let's use those curves to create a NURBS surface. So we'll start off with a simple surface called a revolve. And what this does is it takes a curve and revolves it around an axis to create a radial type of surface. So in order to do this, we do need a flat curve. So I'm going to start off in an orthographic viewport. So I'm going to hop out to a viewport here, and let's go into a side viewport. And I'm also going to turn on snap. And the reason I want to do that is because I want everything to be registered to 0. So when we have the revolve, everything lines up the way that we want. So I'm going to snap to grid here. And let's go ahead and do Create Curve Tools, CV Curve Tools. So if I click at the origin, you'll see that the first point snaps there. We can create a second point. And now we can start to create a shape. So let's create a simple bowl here. So I'm going to go ahead and just click my way around. And let's go ahead and create a bowl. Now this last point also needs to be registered. So again, I'm going to click on the vertical origin here, and we should have a curve. So I hit enter, and we've got our curve. And let's go ahead and hop out to the perspective view. This curve is flat along the z-axis, and then we are going to revolve it around the vertical axis. So we can find the revolve tool by going into Surfaces, Revolve. Now let's take a look at the options for this, because there really are a lot of options for this particular tool. So the first one is, which axis are we going to revolve around? So by default it's Y, vertical, and that's what we want. But we can also do X or Z, or define our own axis if we want. Where do we want the pivot point of this? Do we want it to be on the object, or do we want to create some preset? And then the surface degree. Now, what this means is the curvature of the surface. So by default, it's cubic, which is a smooth surface. Linear means that it's going to put straight lines between the points and create kind of more of a chunky surface. So we're going to leave it at cubic to make it a smooth surface. Then we have a start and end sweep angle. We also have number of segments, so this is just your level of detail. Now we also have output geometry. We can output to a NURB surface, to a polygonal surface, and when we output to a polygonal surface, there's all sorts of different ways to do that. And these are very similar to our NURBS to polygon tools, which we'll take a look at in a little bit. And we can also output to a Bezier patch, which is just a little bit different. So I'm going to keep this at NURBS. In fact, I'm going to keep everything at the default. And let's just do a revolve. Now, when I do that, we get our little bowl here. Now, if we take a look at this in the outliner, you'll see that we actually have two objects here. We have the originating curve, and then we have the revolved surface. Now, one of the nice things about history in Maya is that the originating curve can still be used to reshape the corresponding surface. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off snap here and select this curve, and then right click over it and go into control vertex. So as you can see, I've got just the curve selected. And if I select one of these CVs or control vertices, you can see that as I move this, it actually can reshape this bowl. So I can go to my originating curve and start to fine-tune or revise my subsequent shape. Now I'm going to go back into object mode here. And let's go ahead and select the surface itself. Now the surface was created using a revolve, and if we go over to the attribute editor, you should find a revolve tab. Now that revolve tab has most of the controls that we had on our original creation panel there. So we've got stuff like our start and our end sweep. We've got the degree. Again, we're set to cubic, which is smooth, but if we set it to linear, notice how it becomes kind of chunky and we have straight lines instead of curves in between the detail. I'm going to put that back to cubic. Then we also can increase or decrease the number of sections, which increases that radial detail. So as you can see, we can go back to our surface once it's created and fine-tune it by manipulating the original curve or by going into the node that created the revolve. So hopefully this gives you a little bit of insight into how to turn a NURBS curve into a surface using Revolve.